All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
Okay.
Today, we're going to be looking at some real-world business English,
All right.
and we've got a great snippet from a sales meeting.
Sounds good.
It's a really interesting one, so high pressure, ideas flying around.
I've been there.
Have you? I bet you have.
Yeah.
Not all of them landing smoothly, though.
For sure.
So I'm sure everyone listening has probably been in a meeting like this before, where the energy's high, but the direction is, well, a little less clear.
Absolutely. These situations can be fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you really see how communication, or should I say miscommunication,
Right.
can make or break a team's efforts.
Absolutely. And before we jump into the actual dialogue, I think let's decode a couple of key terms that pop up.
Okay.
So you'll hear the manager in this meeting using phrases like drive sales and promotions.
Right.
But these words can mean different things in different contexts. So first, let's unpack drive sales. In a business sense, what does that actually mean?
Well, it's about more than just hoping for a revenue bump, right? Driving sales means you're actively pursuing strategies to make those sales happen.
Right.
So it's being proactive, it's being goal-oriented, having a plan of attack.
Yeah.
You
It's like putting your foot on the gas pedal and steering the car in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of tactics, the word promotion
Yeah.
in this context isn't about, getting a better job title.
No. This is a specific marketing tactic.
Right.
Think buy one, get one free on shampoo bottles.
Yeah.
Or a limited time discount to attract customers.
Yeah, okay.
It's incentivizing people to buy.
Got it. So now that we've kind of got our vocabulary down, let's set the scene. So we're in this sales meeting. The pressure is on because sales are down. The team is scrambling for ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play the dialogue now, and then we'll really get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tricky situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to contribute.
But you're also dealing with a manager who, well,
Yeah.
isn't exactly receptive.
Right.
This is where I think, the idea of managing up comes in.
Managing up. Now, there's a phrase.
Yeah.
I need to add that to my vocabulary list.
Right.
What does that look like in practice?
It's a subtle art,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
It's about, guiding your superiors towards a better outcome
All right.
without making them feel challenged or like you're undermining their authority.
Okay.
Right. So in this case, I think Roger and Natalie, they could have tried a few different approaches.
Okay, so what would that sound like? Like, give us some concrete examples.
Sure. Yeah. One option would be to gently steer the conversation back to the merits of their initial ideas.
Okay.
Right? So they could rephrase them, maybe provide some additional data or examples to support their points.
Yeah, so instead of letting their suggestions just fade into the background noise, they could say something like, that 2-for-1 promotion you mentioned? We were actually discussing something similar earlier. We think it could be a really effective strategy because...
Exactly. Frame it as a collaborative effort,
Right.
not a challenge to his authority.
Right.
Another tactic could be to ask clarifying questions,
Okay.
which shows that they're engaged and trying to understand his perspective.
What kind of questions could they ask?
Something like, Mr. Swan, you mentioned wanting concrete solutions. What specific metrics are most important to you right now?
Right.
Or maybe we're hearing some concerns about, potentially lowering prices. What are your thoughts on that?
Ah, okay. So instead of just throwing out ideas, they could have tried to understand his perspective better
Yeah.
and then tailor their suggestions accordingly.
That's the key.
Yeah.
It's active listening, reading between the lines,
Yeah.
responding in a way that shows you understand the underlying concerns and motivations.
Right.
That can make all the difference in how your ideas are received.
Yeah. This is making me think about all those times where I've just blurted out ideas in meetings without really considering the bigger picture.
Right.
Or the other person's point of view.
Yeah. It's something we can all work on no matter what our role is.
For sure.
So going back to that phrase, match the competitors,
Right.
it highlights a common challenge in business. The pressure to keep up with the competition.
Right. You can't just rest on your laurels.
Right.
The business world is constantly evolving.
For sure.
And, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. But matching the competition isn't always the best strategy, is it?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it can lead to, a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Where everyone's cutting prices, sacrificing quality just to stay afloat.
Right.
That's not a recipe for long-term success.
So how do you break out of that cycle? What's the alternative to just trying to keep up with everyone else?
That's where, innovation and differentiation come in. Instead of trying to be the same as everyone else,
Right.
you need to figure out what makes you unique, what sets you apart in the market, what's your unique selling proposition.
Like English Pod being the best language learning podcast in the market.
There you go.
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, you need to identify your strengths
Right.
and capitalize on them. Maybe it's your exceptional customer service,
Right.
your cutting-edge technology, your commitment to sustainability, whatever makes you stand out from the crowd.
Okay, so let's say you've, identified what makes you unique.
Mm.
How do you effectively communicate that to your audience? How do you make them care?
Well, that's where clear and compelling messaging is crucial.
Right.
You need to articulate your value proposition in a way that resonates with your target audience.
Right.
So it's not just about what you do.
Right.
It's about how you do it differently.
Right.
And why that matters to your customers.
I'm sensing another important vocabulary word here. Value proposition. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so it's basically a concise statement that explains why a customer should choose your product or service over the competition.
Okay.
So it highlights the benefits you offer, the problems you solve for your customers.
This is all starting to feel very strategic. It's not just about winging it in meetings.
Right.
It's about understanding your business inside and out and being able to communicate that effectively.
And that brings us back to the importance of, critical thinking and active listening.
Yeah.
Even in a seemingly simple sales meeting like the one we heard, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion. But instead of tears, we're getting valuable insights into how to navigate these complex situations. So if we zoom out a bit, what are some of the broader takeaways from this sales meeting that we can apply in our own work lives?
I think one of the most important takeaways is the importance of creating a culture of open communication and constructive feedback.
Right.
If Roger and Natalie had felt more comfortable pushing back, or if Mr. Swan had been a more receptive listener, the outcome of that meeting could have been very different.
Yeah. It's about fostering an environment where everyone feels safe to share their ideas, even if they're not fully formed, without the fear of being shut down.
Yeah.
That's how you get the best ideas flowing.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, for those in leadership positions, it's vital to cultivate active listening skills. Really tune in to what your team is saying. Ask clarifying questions, acknowledge their contributions. Don't let good ideas slip through the cracks because you're not paying attention.
Sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe that 2-for-1 promotion wasn't a bad idea after all. It just needed to be properly considered and developed.
It's about recognizing the potential in every idea and exploring it collaboratively rather than dismissing it outright. And even if you're not in a leadership role, it's still important to think about how you can be a more effective communicator and advocate for your own ideas.
So how can we do that? Give us some actionable advice that we can put into practice right away.
Yeah, one strategy is to practice what we call framing. So it's about presenting your ideas in a way that aligns with the goals and priorities of your audience. So instead of just saying we should lower prices, you could say, I think lowering prices could be a strategic way to increase market share and drive sales.
I like that. It's about speaking the language of your audience.
Exactly.
And connecting your ideas to the bigger picture. It shows you've thought things through and you understand what matters to them.
Exactly. Another tip is to always be prepared to back up your suggestions with data or examples. So instead of just saying, I think this will work, you could say, based on our market research, a 2-for-1 promotion could lead to a 20% increase in sales.
That's a great point. It makes you sound more credible and informed. And it shows you've done your homework.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of sales meetings, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with? What's the most important lesson we can learn from this seemingly simple interaction?
Well, I think the most important lesson here is that in a world just overflowing with information and opinions, it's more crucial than ever to be, a discerning listener and a critical thinker.
Yeah, that's so true. We can't just passively absorb everything we hear.
Exactly. We need to question assumptions. Consider different perspectives and always, try to understand the why behind the what.
It's about digging deeper, looking beyond the surface and connecting the dots.
Yes.
In a meaningful way.
Absolutely. And these skills aren't just valuable in a business setting. They're essential for navigating every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether we're in a meeting or having a conversation with a friend or even just scrolling through social media, that critical thinking muscle needs to be flexed.
It really does. It helps us to make, informed decisions.
Right.
To form our own opinions.
Right.
And to not be swayed by every shiny object that comes our way.
I love that analogy, the shiny objects.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
They are everywhere. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of business English and communication dynamics, I think the message is clear.
It is.
Don't just accept things at face value. Question, analyze, and think critically. And remember, the most insightful discoveries often lie beneath the surface.
Very well said.
Well, thank you, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.